So when we were redesigning our FYE and our ISEMINAR, we were looking at focusing on personal, social, and academic integration, as a lot of you know. And we were looking for a great video that spoke to that. And Dr. Mars and I came across Julian's video that many of you have seen, his TED talk that is online. And it was exactly what we needed. His capitals were exactly what we were talking about when we were talking about integration. And at a conference earlier this year, I briefly met Julian, and a few of our peer mentors and I were on a professional development video over the summer, and it was great. And we decided to bring him out and let you all experience his talks and discuss with him as well. So without further ado, Julian Gordon, and I'll let him finish introducing himself.
Yeah. Thank you. Good morning. How are you? Good. Good. We got a lively group for 8 a.m., 9 a.m., right? 8 a.m. I'm from New York, so I landed at 11 p.m. last night, which was 2 a.m. my time, and then I drove from Albuquerque. So it's been a long one. Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to be with you. And first and foremost, I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing on campus. Student leadership is really what creates the culture on campus. And so all of you are having a huge impact and huge influence. And I want to help you be more influential. And I also want to help you all leave a legacy by the time you leave here. There are some assumptions that we have about leadership that we get taught or that we see in the media that I want to break down for you so that when you leave, all of your organizations actually end up better after you leave than they actually are during your presence. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the 4 levels of leadership, how to lead and sustain successful student organizations. So leadership is, let's see if the clicker is working. Leadership is actually the most valuable skill set in today's marketplace. How many of you are planning on getting a job after this? Okay, so regardless of GPA, regardless of major, the most valuable skill set that employers want in today's world is actually leadership. So the fact that you're going above and beyond and actually choosing to engage your time here in the New Mexico Highlands as leaders is already setting you apart. See, employers at the end of the day, this is what a resume looks like. At the end of the day, many employers don't care about what college you go to anymore. Ernst & Young actually has removed the degree classification from their entry-level criteria. And this is a big 5 accounting firm saying that colleges pretty much don't matter, and they don't train you for success in career life. So this is actually starting to take place. At the end of the day, your GPA will only be 3 little characters in the upper right-hand corner of your resume, and after the age of 25, nobody will care what your GPA was. I know the valedictorian from my high school, and she's doing okay. Her GPA in high school didn't have any indication that she's going to be more widely successful than everybody else. Right? And so since junior high school, we've been focused on GPA, and at the end of the day, we know that GPA is not actually what matters. What employers want to see is that you know how to create value, meaning that you know how to solve meaningful problems, that you know how to get money, meaning that you understand the basics of their business, and they want to see that you led 20 or more people. And 20 more people that comes through student organizations like the ones you run, fraternities, sororities, intramural sports, community service projects. There's all kinds of ways to engage in leadership, but this is actually the most valuable skill that they are looking for. In today's economy, followers get hired last. Followers get hired last, right? Because we are moving in this very uncertain economy, and in this uncertain economy, it's actually leaders who step up and are able to help organizations navigate the uncertainty that exists, and that's what great leaders do. Okay? So my question to you is, are you a leader or a follower? Are you a leader or a follower? How many would say that you are a leader? How many would say that you are a follower? Okay? So the reality is that we are all a little bit of both. We all have some leader in us in certain domains of our lives, and we all have follower in us in some domains of our lives. So for a long time growing up, I thought that I was a leader. I'm the son of 2 doctors. I come from a lot of privilege. This is my mom and dad, oral surgeon and anesthesiologist. So I had a lot of privilege growing up. And because I had good grades and I went to UCLA for undergrad, and then I went to Stanford for business school, and I got my master's there in education as well. And so I thought I was really being a leader and directing my life. And And so this was my academic journey. I finished UCLA in 3 years, and I thought that that was being a leader. And so at the age of 18, after my first year at UCLA, I bought this Mercedes-Benz. Some of you have seen the TED Talk already. But after having it for 2 weeks, I got held up at gunpoint for this car, and it was gone, just like that. And I had a huge wake-up call. It would happen to be summer. I happened to be an RA, so I had housing and food taken care of. I had no money left because I put it all into the car. And I went through a deep space of introspection where I was asking myself some real tough questions, like whose definition of success was I living? And it was clear that I was not living my own definition of success. I was actually living out my parents' definition of success. The only reason that I had bought a Mercedes-Benz is because it was the only car that I'd ridden in my entire life. It was a subconscious decision. And so here I thought I was living my life and directing it in the way that I wanted it to go. And the reality is that I was literally just playing out my parents' version of life. Right? And so the next question I had to ask myself was, how do I define success? And as I got clear on my unique definition of success, that's what allowed me to start moving through UCLA differently, started allowing me to start moving through my career differently, and started allowing me to move through my life differently. Because up until that moment, I was literally on cruise control. I was just checking off the boxes of other people's expectations. And see, the thing is, when you are actually checking off the boxes of other people's expectations, you are actually not engaged in leadership. You may be succeeding. It's okay. But the off button never works when that happens, right? So here I was meeting other people's expectations of what my life should be like, right? And I recognized that I actually wasn't a leader. I was literally following somebody else's vision of what my life was. And we could succeed in that way, and you could check off all your parents' boxes, other people's expectations, and still be unhappy because you were checking off everybody else's boxes and not yours. And so it's really important for us to get clear on what it is that we want out of life. And so out of that experience came a metaphor that has literally been driving my life, and that is that your life is your vehicle to design, drive, and maintain. Your life is your vehicle to design, drive, and maintain. Designing your vehicle means getting clear on your unique definition of success. Driving your vehicle means making intentional choices about the direction that you want your life to go that are not influenced by anyone else. See, we're all driving under the influence. Not in that bad way, not in the DUI way. We are all driving under the influence. You're being influenced, whether you know it or not, by your parents, by what your peers are doing, by what the economy is, how it's shaping up here in New Mexico. We're all driving under the influence. So what's really important is for us to simply be aware of those influences so that we can put them to a side for a second and say, why am I really here? If I was to put all my parents' expectations, friends' expectations, and the economy to the side, what is it that I want from my life, right? And if we find that there's some incongruence between what you want and what other people want for you, then those may be some difficult conversations that you have to have. Some of you are still majoring in things that you are majoring in because that's what your parents want. And you know deep down inside your heart that that's not what you want. And so self-leadership is actually the beginning of leadership. Because if you try to start leading others, guess what? We all have noses, right? And we can sniff out when somebody's not living an authentic life. We can sniff out easily when somebody's not living an authentic life, when they are actually being a follower, even though they may have a title of president or vice president of the organization. Yeah, you're that, but you need to lead by example, right? By paving your own road. So a lot of people are backseat driving through life, or they're driving other people's vehicles. And by other people's vehicles, I don't mean other people's cars. I mean other people's dreams, visions, and ideas of what their life should look like. And my ultimate goal for you is for you all to be in the driver's seat of your life, so that you can actually direct it where you want it to go. And when you start living your life authentically in this way, this is when people will follow you regardless of a position, because they will be inspired by you living a unique, authentic life. That is the greatest way to lead. So the big question, if we're going to start with self-leadership before we get into you leading other people, the big question is, what do you want? And because the audio, because we had to switch this, because we had to switch this to PDF, unfortunately I can't play the video for you. But in this scene in the notebook, he asked the young lady simply, what do you want, right? Put all the parents, all the things, everybody else's expectations aside. What do you want? And she could not answer the question. she could not answer the question. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to write down just a list of what you want. What do you want out of your college experience, and what do you want out of life? I'm gonna give you 90 seconds to just free write and come up with as many things as you want. Not that other people want for you or that you think would be good for other people to see you have. What do you want? Phone is okay as well. We are in a new age. What do you want? Many of us know what we don't want. We can rattle off what we don't want really quickly. But it's very hard for us to answer, what do I want? Now, knowing what you don't want will give you information because you typically want the opposite, right? So knowing what you don't want can help you get clear on what you do want. But we want to focus on what do you want? What do you want? And hi to all the other schools. Everybody say hi to all the other schools. Will the camera move? No, it's not moving. Hi, all the other satellite campuses. For joining us today so we can have maximum impact. You've got 45 more seconds. This is your Christmas list, your wish list. What do you want out of college and out of life, out of your career? What do you want? Free write, keep on going. More seconds. Keep writing. Ten more seconds. So how did you find that? Was that easy or was that hard? No, it was hard. It was hard. It was easy for you? Okay. What made it hard for you? Had you thought about that question before?
I had thought about it, but it's just sometimes you know, when you're like a person that doesn't settle, you're always reevaluating things. You know, things aren't just always, you come back to it one time and you're like, yeah, this is what I wanted at that point. But life changes, things happen, and you always want to come back and reevaluate. And it's, I don't know, it's not as easy as for some people it is, but
Got you. What made it easy for you?
Just maybe that it's clear for me in a way that I just have clarity in what I see in the future and what I want.
Got you. Good, good, good. Anybody else?
I think it's easy and difficult.
It's easy and difficult at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So if happiness is going after what you want, then hesitation is actually the opposite of happiness. And when you don't go after what you want, it's going to be hard to be happy. And when you are living a life where you're going after that what you want, people will be inspired by the way that you're moving through the world, regardless of your title, right? They will be inspired by you pursuing that what you say you want for your life. And so the real question we need to ask ourselves is, are we free thinkers? If we're all driving under the influence, we have to ask ourselves, are we free thinkers? Are the thoughts that we think on a daily basis, are they actually our thoughts or are they somebody else's thoughts? So when you came into this world, the moment you were born, it was all just you. It was all just you. You were just an authentic, unique idea. But then, and so that was the beginning, right? But then as we go through life, I said we're all leaders and followers, right? We're all leaders and followers. There are teachers that we have along the way where we are in following mode, and then there's spaces where we're actually in leadership mode. So let's look at the different areas of life. In education, in the domain of education, who are you learning from right now? Teachers, right? Teachers. Now, does anybody feel that they are a leader in some sort of subject where they could come up here and speak for an hour? Okay, what could you teach us?
I feel like I'm very knowledgeable about my field.
Your field, what is your field?
Sociology and anthropology.
Great, so he could,
I could give lectures all day long.
great. So he's not a professor, but he could come up here and because of his confidence in his subject matter, he feels he could be a leader in this particular room, right? He may not be the world's best at it, but he could be a leader in this room. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, who do you rely on for your money thoughts?
The economy.
The economy? No, where are you learning about money from? Your parents. Are your parents wealthy? Huh?
Capitalism.
So you want to be wealthy? Okay, are your parents wealthy? Okay, they're doing well. So you're learning from them, right? But some of us by default, we go learn about money from our parents, and our parents don't have the money that we want. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, right? So does anybody know some people who teach financial literacy, some names out there? Anybody read any books? Anybody read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Okay, so I'm going to invite you to write down a name. It's called Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You do not have to go out there, and if you are not wealthy by your own action and your own mindset, then this is an opportunity for us to follow. But we're following consciously and intentionally, right? How many of you want more money than you have right now? Okay, so it would be best to learn. So you want more money than you have right now, but your own thinking about money is what is causing you to have what you have right now. So it would be best to actually access someone who has more expertise at earning money, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a space where you can actually be a follower. How about spirituality? Who you rely on?
Nature.
Nature, right? And minister, huh? Mom and dad, okay. Love, where are you learning about love? Parents? My parents got divorced, so I don't think I should learn about love. Who are you leaning on to learn about love? You just gonna figure it out on your own?
Yeah.
Friendships? How many of you know some people who've been married for quite some time? Happily married for quite some time. Because the length of marriage does not mean the happiness of marriage. Okay? So I encourage you to go interview those people and ask them what has kept the love lasting for that long, right? Who are you leaning on for your career? Where are you getting guidance from that? Mentors, okay? Career centered. Health, how are you learning about your body? This is the vehicle that's going to be with you from birth until death. Would it be smart of us to learn about how to use it and how to treat it right? Yet we're all trying to figure it out on our own. There are people out there who we could follow intentionally until we actually become leaders and can actually share that information with others. Each one teach one, okay? So there are different areas of your life where you are a leader and different areas of your life where you are a follower. Where you are actually a follower, you want to be clear that I'm learning from this person, right? Because all of these areas of life are important for us, okay? So when you were born on your birthday, here was you before you were born, then there's these influences, right? So the question again is, are we a free thinker? Are we actually thinking our own thoughts, or are we actually just regurgitating other people's thoughts? Because that's what a lot of us do on tests, right? We learn from a professor, then they give us some questions to see how much we were listening, we regurgitate their thought. We haven't created any new thinking. And so we wonder why we keep on living out situations like Las Vegas over and over, is because none of our thoughts have changed about life and about each other and about the world. So we keep reliving out the same things because we're just playing in the same thoughts over and over. But if we start to open up as leaders, we start to open up new possibilities of people that they hadn't experienced before, then that's how we actually create a new world. So what the problem is that sometimes we're born and then we start being influenced by mom and dad, right? They become the heavy influences, and what gets squeezed out is you. From birth until yesterday. There was you all at first, but then we get all these other people putting in thoughts and basically indoctrinating us in terms of how they think the world should work or does work. And we get squeezed out of the equation. And so we think we're being leaders of our own lives, and the reality is we're just living out other people's ideas of what life is supposed to be. And so I want you to be in a space of self-leadership, because that will help you lead others. So now, because we have inherited all of their beliefs, right, then we're actually seeing the world not through our own eyes, we're actually seeing the world through their eyes. We see money through their eyes. We see love through their eyes. We see politics through their eyes. We see religion through their eyes. Okay? So we have to change that. And so we have to put all of these influences aside and get back to who you are. Who you were born before you even who you were before you were even born and got here, right? That's where the leadership really is, so that then we can actually have your unique view of the world, okay? So, and out of that unique view, out of that authentic thought, that's where new creations and possibilities come from. So, many people call us the lost generation. They think that we don't know where we're going, and the reality is we just don't like where they've been. And so because we don't want to choose between their paths, the way they've actually navigated life, they call us lost, okay? And so many of us are on easy road, which is be good, get good grades, go to good school, and get a good job. Raise your hand if that's what you're told to do. You must all have the same parents. But why do they call it easy road?
That's how it works. It's supposed to be easy.
It's easy. How many of you wake up sweating bullets here every day because school is just so hard? With the exception of anybody in STEM, I know those classes are hard. But how many really wake up just sweating bullets because it's just so hard here? One person, okay? The rest of us are chilling, hanging out. Man, I only got 12 hours of class. Man, I'm about to go climb this mountain. The sun is shining. It's not hard. Very few of you have ever been pushed to your capacity. Right? Who says that K through 12 takes 13 years? Who said that? If they would have condensed the same amount of information in the 8 years, you would have all finished. So a lot of us are just coasting. We've not really been pushed to our capacity yet. And so we all get pushed down the traditional career paths: teacher, doctor, lawyer, engineer, businessman, businesswoman, accountant, etc., as if these are the only 5 career paths that exist. And the reality is that the number of career possibilities out there are actually infinite. So you as a leader don't have to choose from a limited set of questions. Is there In-N-Out Burger here? No. I wish. In-N-Out Burger. Have you ever been to In-N-Out Burger?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody know about the hidden menu on the In-N-Out? Raise your hand if you know about the hidden menu. Right? How many been to In-N-Out Burger and don't know about the hidden menu? Okay, so they sad now, right? So those individuals are coming to In-N-Out, and because they just saw what was possible, right, on the menu, they chose from that limited set of choices. But those of us who know the hidden menu know that the menu is actually 3 times as large as it appears to be on there. All the ingredients are there, right? But they only present these particular options, and that's how we tend to navigate through life. We look at life and we choose our careers and our majors and things of that nature from a limited perspective, when the actual possibilities that are out there are almost infinite. Okay, so we want to avoid that because this is where easy road will lead you if you were trying to do exactly what everyone else is doing. And so I like to call us Generation Y, not the letter Y, but the question why. We question things. Why not? Why does it have to be this way? Why is it this way? You know, the world is messed up, and it's our parents' fault. Don't tell them I said that. Okay? Do you agree? I agree too. But we have opportunity to change it. And when we continue to ask the question why, not only why am I here? What is my purpose? Right? And why does this have to be this way? Why can't it be like this? Then that's what's going to allow us to start paving our own road. Right? And when you pave your own road, who do they name it after? They name it after you. The reason there's an MLK Boulevard in every city is because he lived a unique life. There's thousands and thousands of ministers all across the country at that time, thousands and thousands of activists, but he did it in such a unique way that, we've honored his life by naming monuments and streets after him all over the country. Right? And that is all possible for you. These enlightened beings that we've had, from Gandhi to Martin Luther King, to Malcolm X, Che Guevara, that's all possible for you. They were students just like you at a certain age, and they just continued to grow in their self-leadership, which put them in a position to lead others and lead movements. Okay? So really this journey starts with the question why, and the question why is really around your purpose. Why are you here? Right? This is not just about having a major. It's not just about getting a good job. Why do you believe that you were actually created? Right? And this is a lifelong journey of finding your purpose, but your purpose serves as your GPS. Right? I could have not reached this destination because it's 2 hours from Albuquerque, even though it was one freeway pretty much. I probably wouldn't have got here successfully if I did not have a GPS, right? It would have taken me a lot longer. I would have got lost. I would have had to ask for more help. Asking for help is perfectly fine. But without a GPS, when you get lost, this is what redirects you and corrects you. And so in every single moment, right, where you were feeling lost and uncertain about what your next step is, you just come back to your GPS and your purpose. And you get clear and like, okay, let me stop, let me pause for a moment, and let me see what is the next best step for me. So I want you to fill in this equation or this fill in the blank. So my purpose at this moment in time, and I've gotten clarity and it's evolved over time, my purpose is to create a world where everyone has a team. That is my vision, a world where everyone has a team. A lot of people who navigate life alone, smart, successful people, and we've been taught survival of the fittest, every man for himself, if it's gonna be, it's up to me. And so we graduate here and then we go create these nuclear families and we try to figure life out on our own. And I found more power and more success when people move in packs and move in teams, right? Just like many animal groups do. I just saw birds doing a flying V the other day, and they do that because the first bird is bearing the hardest, having to flap the hardest, but the other ones are in their tailwind. And actually, the further down you are in the flying V, the less you have to flap because you are riding off the energy and the flaps of the other birds. That's what's so powerful about the flying V. That's intentional, right? And so my vision is a world where everyone has a team, and I'll share with you the mastermind movement that I've been creating in a minute. But I want you to take a moment, and you may not want to think about the world yet, right? I know you all want to change the world, but you may just think about the campus. I want you to finish this statement. I envision a world or a campus where what? What do you envision? I want you to write this down. I want you to finish this statement. I envision a world where everyone has a team. What do you envision? You can use campus. You can use world, you can use country. What do you envision? I want you to finish this statement. And I do cold calls, so make sure you do the activities, okay? It's not permanent. We'll come up with something right now. It doesn't have to be permanent. It can evolve. But this becomes your GPS. When you're putting on programming, navigating campus. Anybody want to share? Yes.
I think it could go both ways with the world and campus, especially with the tragedies that are going on and the situation that we're in. But I think united. I think we're very disconnected as people in general due to social stuff. I don't know. Even though we're so connected, we're still disconnected. So I would say united.
Got it. I envision a world that is more united. Awesome. Anybody else?
Mine's basically the same stuff.
Yours the same?
Same thing. People opening up their social and political ideals to harbor what's best for us as, I guess, a species worldwide. Not just I'm better than you, you're better than me, but like you said, unity.
Yeah. Awesome. Yes.
Actually ties into what my idea was. My idea was I envision a world campus where no one feels alone because it is integrated with the environment.
Awesome. Anybody else? Yes.
Mine's pretty similar to what everyone else said, but just kind of like where everyone can kind of just live life and not necessarily always have to stress or worry about things. They can just kind of be at peace and just kind of just go through life living life, not just routine.
Got you. Great. Yes.
Yeah, I come from Africa, so I envision a world where every African can become anyone, anywhere, at any time.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Yeah. Anybody else? One more. So this is your anchor now. So when you think about how you are showing up on a daily basis, when you think about the conversations that you are having, when you think about the programming that you decide to put on with your student organizations, they should all be centered around your purpose. Right? Every moment should actually be centered around moving in the direction of your purpose. And again, write in pencil. It evolves. As you evolve, it evolves. But now you have a GPS to guide you in your decision making. As you're thinking about your careers after you graduate, if it's not aligned with your purpose, you're not going to be able to do your purpose on the weekends. You need to dedicate your entire life energy to actually fulfilling that purpose, right? And so as you're thinking about careers, having this statement will help you decide which companies are not a fit for you, even though they may be prestigious and other people may like them. If it's not aligned with your purpose, then that doesn't matter. How much they're paying does not matter. Right? It has to be aligned with your purpose. You have to know that there are organizations out there. They may not be the ones that recruit on campus, but there are organizations that I know are aligned with each one of your purposes right now, and they're not all nonprofit organizations either. Okay. Even Google in its mission to make the world's information universally accessible to all, that is connected to his purpose. That is connected to her purpose to have these more open dialogue where people can find conversations and groups that allow them to have more open conversation, right? So it does not always have to be a nonprofit initiative, okay, in order for you to live out your purpose. So with this, leaders help people navigate uncertainty, because a leader, there are some student organizations across the country that literally just take the template from last year and do the exact same thing, right? They might get a few more people to attend the event because of the pros and cons that they did with their marketing strategy, but they're just replicating the exact same thing that they did in last year. And they're not putting any new possibility and sparking anything new. They're just repaving the same exact road that was paved last year, right? And so you, with these new purposes, right, these statements, these are possibilities that haven't been achieved yet. And so you're going to be taking people on paths that have not been paved yet. And that's going to be uncertain paths, because you're taking them to a place that you've never been. You've never been there, and they've never been there. And so you have to figure out how to help people be comfortable in the midst of uncertainty, right? Because we could go do exactly what happened last year. That's easy. We can go put on the same programs. We can go do the same thing on the walk. We can do the same political action. We can do the exact same thing as last year, and we're going to get the exact same results. But as a leader, you always want to push the frontier. You're trying to explore new possibilities that no one has ever seen before, and you want to share your vision. And all your visions were powerful, right? You want to share your visions, because it's those visions that inspire people to say, hey, let's try that. Let's go for that, right? And here's the thing. Every leader that we've considered in society, at some point they were not a leader. Like, we look at people and like, oh man, they're such a great leader, this, that. At some point, there was a point where they were not a leader. Leadership is really you just stepping into the forefront and saying, I'm going after something I want. There's no natural born leaders. We're all not born leaders. Right? And until we decide to make a choice to pursue a possibility that we have not seen exist before. Does that make sense? Okay. So what is a leader? Let's get very clear on that. What do you think a leader is? How would you define it?
Someone that leads through work ethic.
Someone who leads through work ethic.
Someone who's not afraid to be themselves.
Someone who's not afraid to be themselves.
Not afraid to get involved with the people that are leading.
Not afraid to get involved with the people that they're leading.
Not afraid to take risks.
Not afraid to take risks. Right. So I want to share a story of how I learned about leadership. When I was at UCLA, we organized this college day where we brought 1,000 students from across the LAUSD school district and Inglewood Unified School District up to UCLA. And this was our team who organized that entire conference. That's me right there. And I was a co-chair of this conference. And there were 10 committees. There were like transportation, food, programs, security, games. There was all kinds of committees. There's like 10 committees. And so here I am, the co-chair of this conference, and I think I'm a leader, right? And one woman who was actually she was a committee chair, she came up to me one day in the midst of us organizing this conference. She said, "What do you do?" And I'm co-chair of the conference. She's a committee head, and she's asking me, what do I do? And honestly, in that moment, I couldn't answer her. I couldn't really explain what it was that I was doing, because she had this long to-do list of go get all these buses organized, call all these people, this and that. My to-do list didn't look like that as the leader of the conference. I recognize in hindsight that my role was really about holding the vision, holding people accountable, and getting all of their limiting beliefs and excuses out of the way for them to show up and be who they are and be as great as they are. right? But that's not really like a to-do list item where she had a long to-do list where she was just checking off, being on calls with people. That wasn't how my thing looked. And so when she asked me, what did you do? I couldn't answer the question, even though I was a quote unquote leader. Does that make sense? How many of you have felt like that before? Okay. So you're head of this organization, but what I was actually doing was I was empowering other people to actually take action. And that is a skill set that is actually unique because not everybody can do that. There was a young man who was actually on the food committee. He was a freshman, and he got involved early. And I said, I need you to go find food in LA. I need you to get sandwiches donated for 1,000 students. And I give this to a freshman who just came out of high school and was not a student leader in high school. And guess what? He rose to the occasion and he found 1,000. He found various subways to donate over 1,000 sandwiches. I bumped into him 10 years later in New York. Now we're in New York. We bumped into him. He said, "You remember when you made me head of the food committee?" He said, "That changed my whole life because I was scared when you gave me that task, but it taught me things about myself." And he went on at UCLA to become a student leader in various organizations. But he traces it back to that moment that I empowered him and believed in him, something that he didn't even see was in himself. Does that make sense? And you have that authority as being the leaders in your organizations, okay? So you are already a leader, and you have to recognize that just because you're a leader, you have to recognize that everyone around you is a leader. They just don't recognize it yet. There were people when I was a freshman who saw me as a leader, even though I didn't see myself as a leader. But you are responsible for looking at everyone around you as a leader. Not I'm the leader and you're all my followers and just doing anything I ask you to do. That's not how we want to perceive people. That's how organizations die. Because guess what? The moment the leader goes on and graduates or leaves, what do you leave behind? A whole bunch of followers. So your role is actually to empower leaders. So people are following you in different areas of your life. Your siblings follow you, your friends follow you in social media. You might have followings, blog readers, underclassmen, sorority, fraternity, brothers and sisters, right? So the dictionary definition of a leader is the person who leads or commands a group, organization, or country. We have leaders in our country right now who I don't perceive as leaders, despite their position, right? So I don't totally agree with this one. And then the second definition in the dictionary is a person followed by others. Just because I have 300 people follow me on Twitter, does that make me a leader? No, it's not about followers, right? So here, I want you to write this down. This is my definition of a leader. It's very plain and simple. It's as simple as I can make it. A leader is someone who creates more leaders. And therefore, leadership is the process of creating other leaders. It's that simple. So how many of you feel like you're creating more leaders? Okay. What's her name? What's his or her name?
Leaders?
Yeah. Who are you actually working on and cultivating?
There's a couple students. I'm an SI for
I don't know all
chemistry
these
SI.
acronyms.
It's a supplemental instructional leader, so
Okay.
we teach study groups, we
Okay.
lead study groups, and more kind of encourage learning between people as
Okay.
opposed to just lecturing.
Great.
So I feel like there are some students who will step to the front and not be afraid to go to the board and answer questions and show other students how to do it.
Yeah.
And so when I have another student that has a question, instead of answering them, I ask this other student,
Great.
and I look at it like cultivating a leader.
Great. What's the name of the person you're cultivating right now?
Well, I do have with the wrestling team here at Highlands. A lot of young freshmen that we basically try to pave the road for them and show them what work ethic you need to put in order to become successful. Not only that, I also help out academic support with other students. I'm a work study, just a student just like them. Anytime they're getting any kind of help or any kind of guidance, we come to them and we basically try to help them out because again, like I said, we're students just like them. We made it somehow and we made it happen. And we just want to help them have the same success.
Great. So I want each of you to write down 2 people who you're going to pour just a little bit more into. Write down the names of 2 people you're going to pour. I'm not asking you to play favorites, right? Because I want you to see everyone as a leader. But I want you to write down the name of 2 people who you're just going to pour a little bit more into. Because you see something in them. You see possibility. You see power in them. Just write down their name. You don't even have to tell them, right? It's just in terms of how you relate to them and how you show up when you're around them. I want you to just write down the names of 2 people you're going to pour a little bit more into. Everybody got 2? Okay, great. So you can be in the lead without being the leader. Our political environment is demonstrating that, right? Just because you're at the top of the organization, the top of the pyramid, doesn't actually make you the leader. In fact, when I was in business school, they were showing this organizational chart, right? And of course, there's a CEO at the top, et cetera. But then they layered on top of that organizational chart who actually had the most influence in the organization. It was actually somebody who was down here. It was this person who had the strongest relationships and connections to the right people and who could actually get more done than even the CEO. So just because you're in the lead or at the top does not make you the leader. It's actually the person who can influence and get the most movement created and the most things done, right? So it's not about position, okay? So how do you create more leaders? I'm gonna walk you through that process, and it's called the 4 levels of leadership. And it starts with self-leadership, which we've been talking about, inspiration, motivation, and then movement, right? So let's go through that process. And I said this before, nobody will follow you wholeheartedly until you follow your own heart first. All right, so this is where self-leadership begins. Nobody will follow you wholeheartedly until you follow your own heart first. How many of you had a boss where you were like, you're a coward? How many had a boss like that before, right? And you weren't inspired to follow them, right? You take tasks or whatnot, but you were like, I could do this job better than you, et cetera, right? And so again, this speaks to this, okay? So let's start where the main reason why people don't feel like they're leaders right now, and it's usually some sort of not enoughness, okay? So what are some words that fill in the blank? Experience. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not confident enough. I'm not strong enough.
Not known.
I'm not known enough.
Not brave enough.
Not brave enough. Great. So anytime somebody does not recognize themselves as a leader, it's usually some sort of self-doubt that they have inside of them, right? And it's all these not enough, not talented enough, not pretty enough, not smart enough, not thin enough, not fun enough, not known enough, not experienced enough. All these things come up, right? And that was me too. And so I was this empty circle, and there were things inside of me that I didn't recognize. But then there were all these leaders around me. Father Mallow, one of my professors here, my high school professor, college professor, mentor, a high school administrator, my baseball coach, my soccer coach, my mom, who actually believed in me and would tell me that I am enough, right? That I was smart enough, that I was strong enough, etc. And these people poured into me, and they were telling me that you can do it, Julian. And these are people at UCLA who were upperclassmen who did the same thing for me, okay? And so this speaks to level 1. Self-leadership is you believing in you. So write that down. Self-leadership is you believing in you. So it's going from this space of emptiness to a space of belief, a space of self-doubt to a space of belief. Okay? So now you're not in a place of self-doubt, which is I can't do it. Now you're saying to yourself, I can do it, right? And it's usually because somebody poured into you. So you get to be that person who pours into those 2 names that you wrote down, because they may not perceive themselves as leaders yet. So any self-doubt that you see them have, you actually get to smother it with your love, your care, and your affirmation of who they truly are. That makes sense? Okay? So this is ultimately what you want them to feel like, right? This is when you step into your power, right? When you start feeling like Neo from the Matrix and you can stop bullets, right? So leaders don't do what they're supposed to do. They do what they believe in. There's a lot of leaders oftentimes break rules, okay? They oftentimes break rules. They don't just fit into the norm and fit into the template that's laid out and do what they're supposed to. They actually do what they believe in. And sometimes that challenges what they're quote unquote supposed to do, okay? So as you were trying to influence these 2 people that you wrote down or your entire student organization, you have to know that how you show up behind closed doors is being observed. So you may be great in that meeting, you may put on a facade in the meeting, But guess what? They're also watching you when you're at that party on Friday night at 2 a.m. They're watching how you show up, how you relate to people, how you handle alcohol, how you show up at the game. They're watching you on the quad from a distance, right? They're watching you. When you step into leadership, you're actually on a platform now, and people's eyes are on you, right? And so it's not just how you show up in the meeting, right? When it's time to look good, they're actually observing how you show up in every single interaction. And I'm not asking you to be paranoid. They're not following you home, okay? Unless you're dating them. But how you show up in the moments that seem like they don't matter, they're also being observed, right? So if you're going to choose to be a leader, you got to be a leader in every domain of your life, right? It's not something that goes on. I also want to break down this myth that leadership is about charisma, right? It's the most charismatic people. It's really just about courage. It's not about charisma. A lot of people think you have to be some great orator like Steve Jobs or Martin Luther King or Barack Obama or something like that. It has nothing to do with that. Does a little charisma perhaps help a little bit? Yeah, maybe, right? But people connect to you where you are. What they want to see is somebody who's courageous, right? And sometimes charisma is just a derivative of being courageous. The other thing is that leaders listen first and speak last. A lot of people see leaders as, oh, I'm on this podium, I'm a leader. No, leaders are actually better listeners than they are speakers, right? They know who it is that they're serving really well because they've listened. So you're actually engaged in leadership when you decide to actually walk to class with someone who is in your organization and you're learning about how they're doing and what's on their mind. When you actually are breaking bread with them, right? You're having lunch with them, not just having lunch with the same people that you have lunch with all the time. You're actually sitting down with them intentionally to learn about what's been their experience of this university, what's been their experience of the organization, what do they want out of life, right? Ask them those same questions that I asked you. And you're going to get a whole bunch of information because the better you know your team, the more you can actually leverage them and get the most out of them, okay? So step one, self-leadership, you believing in you. That's moving from self-doubt to believe in self and getting to I can do it. Level two, inspiration, others believing in you. Others believing in you, okay? Now, a lot of people stop on inspiration. This is only level two. Oh, I'm this inspirational leader. What's the problem with inspiration? It can go away. It goes away when what happens? When you are no longer there. They're no longer inspired, and what happens? You're left with followers. So in this space, right, there's one leader and there's 4 followers, and they're saying she or he can do it, but I can't do it. Is that where you want to leave your student organization come April? Them thinking, oh, she was great, he was great, but I can't do what he or she does. If that happens in April, when you're ready to transition, what's going to happen to the organization come next September? It's going to crumble. It might exist on paper, but it will not have the strength because we were so focused on inspiration. And inspiration is oftentimes egotistical. Right? If you actually want to leave an organization and leave a legacy here, we have to get beyond just inspirational leadership. So when I was at UCLA, I told you about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read this book and I was like, everybody needs to know this, right? So what I did is I created an organization called Stocks and Bonds. It was sisters taking ownership of their cash and knowledge of stocks, and brothers organizing, networking, dollars and cents. You know college and these acronyms, right? And so we would read these financial literacy books together, and we would talk about them. And then we went out and created a business where we created student planners for students at UCLA, and we tried to create a business and make money, and we did, right? So this was an organization that I initiated, but guess what? Because I had empowered them, and I wasn't just an inspirational leader where certain group members were leading the different meetings, it wasn't just always me. When I actually graduated from UCLA, what happened to the organization? It still existed. It still existed, and it was getting stronger. Okay, and that's what we ultimately want. We want our organization to be stronger. If your organization is stronger after you leave, that's a sign of you being a great leader. If it gets weaker after you leave, then that's a sign of opportunity for leadership growth for you, right? But we won't see that because when we graduate and we'll be in Albuquerque or Santa Fe or somewhere else, but you always want to be thinking about strengthening something, okay? So leadership is not about a position, it's about your presence, okay? So let me, if you had to define my presence right now, in the way I speak, in the way I've connected with you in the first 30, 40 minutes, what is the one word or two words you would give me in terms of my presence and how I've shown up?
Thoughtful.
Thoughtful,
Confident.
humble, confident, eloquent,
Encouraging.
encouraging. Thank you. So my presence that I'm holding right now, the vibration that I hold right now is tough love. Tough love. Love being the noun and tough being the adjective. I want to give you the truth, and everything I share with you is out of love, but I'm going to give you that little extra push, okay? So what I want you to do right now is I want you to write down the word that you want to emanate with your presence. Even if you came into a room and you didn't say anything, what is the word that you want to emanate to those around you just with your presence alone? I want you to write down the word that you want people to feel when they're around you. Okay, what are some of the words? I'm gonna get this section over here. I'll be quiet back here. What's your word?
Strong.
Strong. You want them to feel strong when they are in your presence. That's great. You want them to feel wise. Great. You want them to feel passionate. You want them to feel happy. Positive. You want them to feel positive. Great. Important. Good one. How many people want to feel important? Right? It's a beautiful one, right? One more.
Capable.
Huh?
Capable.
Capable. Great. One more I heard. Safe. Beautiful. So this is your presence. So when you step into any doors where you're going to be, or any conversation where you're going to be interacting with someone else, you're just going to remind yourself of your presence word. Okay, I'm about to have lunch with this person, and I want safety to be communicated just through my way of being. I'm not going to walk into and say, I want you to feel safe. That's going to make them feel unsafe. That'll make them feel unsafe. What do you mean? You're just going to communicate that with how you show up, right? That is the intention. We all have this vibration. You heard of an aura? You've all heard of an aura before? We have this aura, this energetic field that is around us. And when we are in contact with people, that aura, our auras connect, and you can actually pour into this space, right? So this is a beautiful thing. Those are some beautiful words, and we need more of that on campus, okay? So I'm going to talk about this later on tonight at the, or in the afternoon at the larger event, but every member on your team has different forms of capital, right? I call this the other 4.0 that really matters. There's personal capital, intellectual capital, social capital, financial capital, okay? And you as a leader, it's similar to a CEO of a company. A CEO takes their plant, they take their trucks, they take raw materials, they take all these forms of capital, and they weave them together to create some sort of offering to the world, right? Many of you, you might have an office. I saw some student offices over there, but you have maybe an office, you might have a little budget, and then the rest of your capital is actually hidden inside of the people who have signed up to volunteer and be members of your organization. And you as the CEO of the organization basically get to bring that capital together and put it together in certain ways that put something out to the campus in a powerful way. Does this make sense? So each person has their own personal, intellectual, social, and financial capital. Personal capital is how well they know themselves. This is their gifts, talents, strengths, okay? Personal capital, where does it live? It's inside you, right? So you can't see their personal capital. You only get to know their personal capital through observation of how they show up and through conversation with them, right? You start saying, wow, you're really talented at that. And most people, here's the thing, most people don't know their own gifts, talents, and strengths. You wanna know why? Because they come so naturally to them. When something comes so naturally to you, you think that everybody in the world can do it like you. But it's not until somebody says, wow, how'd you do that? That you recognize, oh, I didn't know that not everybody could do that the way I could do it, right? And so when you see that in somebody, you get to hold up a mirror and you get to say, you're actually really good at that. I've met a lot of students during my time here, and the way you got up there and spoke and rallied the crowd, that was absolutely amazing. And now you're giving them language to describe themselves in the world that they didn't have before. Literally, my mentors have given me like one word that I would not have used to describe myself, but once they gave it to me, I was like, wow, that is who I am. Now that makes sense, right? And you get the opportunity to be that for them, okay? Your intellectual capital is what you know. This is their domain expertise in one or two subject fields. So we know he knows sociology and anthropology. All of your members have some sort of intellectual capital. They may have been a great marketer. They may have run a presidential campaign at their high school that got somebody who was unknown and unpopular elected. But if you don't know that they have this skill set, then you never get to leverage it, right? And so you have to pull out their intellectual capital. What do they know that can benefit the mission of the organization? Then there's social capital, who you know and who knows you. How many of you came here and knew people already? Okay, right? How many of you live close to here? Okay, so you may find that people who live close to here, who have many high school classmates, they actually have more social capital on campus than somebody who came from a distance. And you can leverage that when you're trying to fill in seats at your event, right? Because they have more connections on campus than the other person who came from Philadelphia, right? Or the person from Philadelphia could have come and been so social that they met tons of people, they're involved in all kinds of organizations, and they actually have the most influence. But you have to know who in your organization has the greatest amount of social capital. Does that make sense? And then financial capital. Financial capital is basically money, right? And there are resources on campus that you can use to access money. All your organizations have a budget, okay? And then there's grant applications on campus for other types of monies, right? Okay, so some people are better at accessing those monies and that funding than others. And so you want to leverage the financial capital that's on campus to achieve your mission, okay? So campus capital. Campus has courses, centers, libraries, online databases, programs, and events. Social capital is professors, classmates, alumni networks, student groups, and guest speakers. And financial capital is student government, scholarships, grants, financial aid, career center, and equipment that you have access to that other people have to pay for. So you get to leverage the campus's capital to do whatever your organization is set out to do, okay? So you're using the campus's capital, you're using your members' capital, and you're using your budget to execute, okay? So I'm gonna continue to go through it. Self-leadership, you believing in you. Inspiration, others believing in you. And now we're getting to level 3, which is motivation. Subtle distinction. Others believing in themselves the way they believe in you. You see the difference? What was the problem with inspiration?
Unempowered.
Unempowered, right? Just a whole bunch of followers. But now in motivation, now they start believing in themselves the way they believe in you. Now you're starting to create, now you have 5 leaders instead of just 1 leader and 4 followers. Okay? Now they're saying, if she or he can do it, then I can do it too. That's different than saying, if he or she can do it, but I can't do it, right? This is a very powerful place to be. It's not the end all, be all, but it is a very powerful place to be, okay? So I have a folder in my email account called affirmations. When I get these things, messages from people who have heard my talks, etc. And I keep it there to remind me of how I've actually, something I've said or done has converted somebody into becoming a self-leader, where they are no longer going to just be following and doing what they're quote unquote supposed to do, but they're actually going to start living life based on what they actually believe. So here's why this is important. Does anybody recognize a particular player on this youth team? You see LeBron, right? So here's a few people who are WNBA bound. Then there's some people who are bound to play in college. There's some people who are just going to be on the bench on the high school team, and that's it. And then there's somebody who's NBA bound. Now, when people have different aspirations and dreams, do you coach them or lead them all in the same way? You coach them and lead them all in the same way? No, right? So they're going to be members in your organization, some who just want to be members, right? Then there are going to be some who actually want to become the leader of that organization in the future. Then there'll be some who want to actually be SGA president by the time that they're a senior, right? And you have to figure out what each individual in your organization actually wants from the organization so that you can lead them appropriately. Because if you're trying to give this person, these bench-bound people, the same kind of drills that you were trying to push LeBron to do, they're going to be overwhelmed and frustrated because that's not what they signed up for. They just wanted to make the high school team, and if they don't play in college, they're perfectly fine with that. this person knew that they were capable of going pro, and so you have to push this person a little bit harder and give them a little bit more time, energy, and attention. So you actually have to understand what each person in your organization wants out of the organization, okay? So you can't lead someone until you know how they actually define success. This is the number one way to lead somebody, is to get clear on what their unique definition of success is. If I know how someone defines success, then I can say, look, okay, you said that you define success as this. Well, this is how this organization can help you get there, right? This is the greatest carrot that you can use, is not trying to persuade and push and pull people to join your organization. Instead, you say, okay, how do you define success? Okay, that's where success is for you. Well, through our organization, we can help you get close to there, right? So you use their own definition of success to motivate them. You don't try to be persuasive and try to convince people to get involved and to show up, right? To the extent that you're using their own definition of success, they're going to be self-motivated to get involved. So here's my definition of success. It's the alignment of my purpose, passion, and profit. Am I being who I want to be? Am I doing what I want to do? And do I have enough of what I need to continue being who I want to be and doing what I want to do? Right? So this is how I define success. So given that, if you knew this about me as a member of your organization, how would you lead me? How would you lead me? You knew that this was how I define success.
Bringing out passion first.
Huh?
You bring out the passion first.
Bring out the passion. So you would try to find projects that would allow me, that I'm actually passionate about. You wouldn't just delegate to me based on whatever you needed done, right?
To motivate you.
Correct. Anything else? How would you lead me?
You have to figure out who you want to be.
Yep, figure out who I want to be. Great. That's a great question to ask your members. Who do you want to be? Okay, great. Well, I can't help you with that part, but with this part of who you want to be, I know that involvement in the organization in this way can help you develop that. You see what I'm saying? It's a whole different pitch rather than trying to persuade and pull teeth to get somebody to be engaged in your organization, right? You're just tying it to their definition of success, which is what's driving them anyways, okay? So leaders show strength and they show people their strength. So I talked to you about this earlier. This is about reflecting back the mirror. So oftentimes when we lead, we get this power trip. We get this power trip because it's the first time that we've ever had people who are quote unquote under us. Nobody's really under us, right? And we don't really have power over anyone. But we tend to actually point out flaws in people. And we do this in our dating relationships too, right? We're quick to tell somebody what's wrong, what they're not doing right, etc., right? But in fact, we actually want to have moments like this, where a mother is showing her daughter how beautiful she looks the day she's about to get married. You actually want to do that same thing, like I said, with the mirror, and actually hold up a mirror. When somebody does something great, you simply want to affirm them. And when you affirm them, what's going to happen? It's going to inspire them. They're going to want to do more of that which you affirm them on. Right? And they're actually going to want to do it better because they feel appreciated. Right? And so we want to do less of this, of pointing fingers. You didn't do that. You didn't do this. You didn't. If somebody doesn't do something in your organization, you have to ask yourself, instead of actually looking at them, you have to ask yourself, what could I have done differently? It may have been their quote unquote fault, but as a leader, you never point a finger, right? You never point a finger. I hate referencing other people's quotes, but because I want to be authentic, right? But you know the quote, you point one finger at somebody, you got three pointed back at you, right? You heard that one? How many heard that one before? Okay, cool. That's why I didn't want to use it. So we want more of this and less of this, okay? So we're almost there, home stretch, okay? Self-leadership, you believing in you. Inspiration, others believing in you. Motivation, others believing in themselves the way they believe in you. You ready for number 4? Movement. Others believing in each other the way they believe in themselves. Others believing in each other the way they believe in themselves. What do you hear that's different in this one?
Strength comes from them.
Strength comes from them. You provided the initial strength, but now they're at a place where they are strong as a unit. Okay? And watch this. See, there's 4A right there. Watch this. This is going to scare some people. Boom. What just happened?
He took you out of the equation.
You get to leave the equation. Here's 4A. Here's 4B. Once you've gotten them to a point where they believe in each other, then it's no longer about you. your organization will last and it'll be stronger year after year because of the culture you created. You created a place where you have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors believing in each other the way they believe in themselves. Nobody's believing I'm higher than or I'm better than each other. No, this is my squad. We roll as a team. We believe in each other. I know I can rely on them. I know I can lean on her. I know I can lean on him. This is what we ultimately want. And in this place, we say, if I can do it, then they can do it too. Each person believes that if I can do it, they can do it too. And now we have a group of leaders, not a group of followers. This is aspirational. It's not easy to do. But this is what I want you to aspire towards with your organization, okay? So we don't follow the leader, we follow to lead. We don't follow the leader, we follow to lead. Follow the leader means that I follow the leader, but when the leader stops, then that's where my growth stops. We follow somebody to ultimately lead ourselves and take it further than they even took it, right? So movement that I've created is at masterminds.org, and I've been creating goal setting groups all across the country. Actually the globe. This is a group in Alberta, Canada, Detroit, Michigan, Brooklyn, New York, Amsterdam, Minneapolis. These are groups all over the country that are starting up based on a goal setting process and a system that I created in the form of mastermind groups. And this is my way of actually creating more leaders in the world. In fact, this is an old email from one of the longest standing groups from 2012. She said, thank you for the New Year guide. We're going to use this in our 30-day do it group in January meeting. Also, just wanted to update you and share you great news that our group has been going strong for 2 years. Did I show up to any of their meetings? No. But I created a culture and a process and a system for them to facilitate their own growth and development without me actually flying to California to go be part of their meeting. This is now what's hard for people with this level of leadership is that, okay, Julian, but if there's no need for me, then what's the point? Well, that means that you actually get to go on and actually lead something else and create another environment like that. Because now that space is taken care of. Some of us want the world to be on our shoulders and we want to be the one who's the savior. And that's not going to lead to sustainable change that you ultimately want. It'll lead to temporary change, but not the long-term change, okay? So leaders leave legacies, right? Legacies of long-term change. Legacy is what happens after you're gone. This is what we want to focus on, right? Here's your life. 1/3 of your life is gone to sleep. Then there's your 40-year career. Here's college right here. And then there's your free time. You have a lot when you're little, very little when you're working professional and in a relationship or perhaps a parent. There's that this big chunk at the end called retirement, okay? So there's 4 ways to leave your legacy. Baby bodies, bodies of work, institutional bodies, and your body in service to others. Now, baby bodies is the easiest one to do, right? It can happen in 5 minutes if you're not careful, okay? Raising them is another thing, but it can happen pretty quick, right? And there are people who will leave their legacy by just planting seeds wherever they decide to do, but not show up as the real leader, okay? So that's actually the easiest one. It gets more and more difficult from there. So baby bodies, even if you don't have children, there's children, foster kids, students, and people you mentor. So you actually are creating baby bodies with the underclassmen that you are leading. The 2 names that I asked you to write down, these are people who are in your sphere in terms of baby bodies, right? You're helping them mature and grow, right? Then there's your bodies of work. Your bodies of work. Your bodies of work are going to be books that you write, articles that you write, documents, things that are on your resume. These are going to be your bodies of work over the course of your life. Right? When you leave any organization or institution, you should be able to take me on a tour of it and say, yeah, I created this over here. I'm the reason this process is in place over here. I'm the one who initiated this event over here. Of course, other people executed it, but I'm the one who created that vision, right? This is your bodies of work. Then there's, these are some of my bodies of work. These are all my various books, right? These are going to live beyond me, right? Then there's institutional bodies. My AIDS Walk is an institutional body. Ford Motor Company is an institutional body. National Society of Collegiate Scholars, which I was part of, is an institutional body. The student organization that you are in or have created is an institutional body. This campus is an institutional body. A nonprofit you start is an institutional body. A company you start is an institutional body, right? So you can see how it's becoming more and more difficult. But the hardest one is your body in service to others. Your body in service to others means that regardless of if you have kids or not, regardless how long your resume is, regardless if you started a company or a nonprofit, how are people going to remember you in their hearts after you leave? This is your body in service to others. Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Jesus, whoever you want to name, none of them created any institutional bodies or left any bodies of work, right? But what keeps their lives and their legacies going is how people remember them in their hearts. There was a story about a man an older man who was picking out his burial site, and the person who ran the funeral place said, "What do you want on your tombstone?" And he said, "Nothing." Said, "Why would you want nothing on your tombstone? You don't want people to know who you are?" He's like, "What does it matter? I can have the most elaborate monument of all time, but if nobody remembers me in their hearts, then all of that will be insignificant." So this is how you impact people, with your presence, right? And you never know how you impact people. One of my mentors told me, trust the ripple, meaning that when you throw a rock in the water, it may ripple out a couple times when you see it, but you have to know that that vibration, that ripple is still going on infinitely until it hits another shore. So you can't always see the impact of how you reach somebody. It wasn't until I bumped into that young man 10 years later in Brooklyn, New York, that I recognized that that decision I made to empower him to run the food committee had that much of an impact on his life, but the ripple came back, right? So the good that you put out will come back to you. So you have a choice to continue to take easy road or pave your own road, right? Easy road means doing the same thing. I mean, you have a semester and a half left in your leadership positions, and some of you will go on and continue to be leaders after that. We can make this year a replica of last year, right? And just do the same programs, or we can take it up a notch, right? We can pave our own road and actually make this year the best year that your organization has ever had. We're not just going to replicate last year. And on top of that, we're going to create more and more leaders. Leadership is never about you. It's about those that you're here to serve. And we want to elevate them, and we want to reach the 4th level of leadership. Okay? So great leaders, now that I'm aware and have the language, they hold the vision, right? And all of you came up with your vision statements. They coach and build confidence. They remove all obstacles, and they give people the tools that they need to succeed. That's what great leaders do. And I want to thank you for your time, your participation, and your listening today. And I hope that this presentation has served. So we have a little bit of time for maybe like 3 questions. Any questions about me in general, about the presentation, about your leadership? Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It is concerning vulnerability in leadership. A lot of people that I've talked to have the belief that if you're a leader, you cannot show weakness, which in some frames is vulnerability, but I don't believe that, but I want to know what you think.
Yeah, I think vulnerability is key, because if you present yourself as perfect, then people, again, we all have noses and we know how to sniff that stuff out, right? So people actually connect deeper when they actually know that you are imperfect. We see, it's interesting, when we see some celebrities do some things that are just like off the wall, you would think that when they did that thing, it would disconnect people, their fan base would just run. But in all honesty, it actually shows how human they are. And sometimes we connect with them on a deeper level when they've done something that we as humans do stupid stuff, right? But if we put up this facade that I'm this perfect leader, I have it all figured out, people can't connect with that, right? Because we all see ourselves as imperfect beings in some way. So that vulnerability and being able to say in front of your entire leadership, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's actually why I need all of your help to manifest this vision that we're trying to create. What do you think is going to inspire people? I got it all figured out. I need you to do this. I need you to do this. And you need you to do this. Or, look, y'all, I have a vision for this year. I don't know how to do it, and I know I can't do it all on my own. This is my first time being in a leadership role of this significance, and I need your help, and I need your feedback along the way so that I continue to get better. Which leader are you going to follow? The second one, right? So yeah, we can take off our mask and be more vulnerable. We don't have to pretend like we're perfect and we got it all figured out.
So you told us in your presentation that you come from a place of privilege, which means you pretty much, how would I say it, were set. Like you didn't have to face any struggles. But at one moment in your life, did you decide that you wanted to, I guess, give back?
Yeah. So I think oftentimes what inspires us is two things. One, the absence of something in our life inspires us. So if I grew up poor, then I'm inspired to do this because I saw the absence of money growing up. For me, I had a lot of things provided for me, but then I saw that not everybody had those things for them, and so that's where I hope my work has really been about disseminating what was privileged for me to other people who didn't have all the ingredients that I had, you know? That's how I perceive it. So yeah, we're usually inspired by the absence of something, and I recognize how lucky I am, and I didn't want luck to be the factor. I don't want luck to be the factor that causes people to succeed, and so I try to empower as many people as possible by sharing what I know. Like I went to business school, I went to Stanford, I paid all this money, and then what do? I paid all the money, but I try to give all that information back to people who may never be able to access that information. So that's how I perceive it, and that's how I do. Yeah.
Julian, now that you've started this movement and you have all these people inspired, what's your next move?
Man, this is my life's work. I want 100,000 groups by the time I transition. I'm inspired by AA. I had a parent go through Alcohol Anonymous, and I went to an open meeting, and when I stepped into that meeting, it was the most diverse room that I had ever seen. People of all ages, cultures, economic classes working together to help each other do one thing, which was to stay sober. And I left that meeting, and I said, I want this, but of course I wasn't an alcoholic. So I said, how do we create this same kind of space for people that they can access without alcoholism having been the prerequisite? And so that's what led to this movement. AA has been around since 1935. There's 120,000 groups, and there are 112,000 groups globally, and serving about 2 million people a week. And so this literally could be my life's work. I'm open to the possibility that it may not be, but right now, that is the vision. So it's going to take a long time to unfold that. So one more hand. Yes.
What are the hardest obstacles you have to overcome?
The hardest obstacles I've had to overcome. Oh man, marriage. It's so easy when you're just navigating on your own and can make choices in your own vacuum about the direction of your life. But when you have to negotiate those things with somebody else you love, it's been the greatest space of growth for me. There's a couple things that I think cause people to grow. Losing somebody close to you or having a near-death experience, entrepreneurship, marriage, and parenthood, and entrepreneurship. Those are the 5 things that I think cause people to grow the most. And marriage is at the top of that list for me, because you have to release selfish behavior, but still at the same time, take care of yourself and do what's best for you. So it's the hardest thing to navigate. And so I've been married for 4 years now. And I'll be honest with you, I have 2 wedding rings. And the reason why is because my wife symbolically and I had to get remarried because we hit a tough point in our marriage where, and we couldn't pinpoint why it occurred. We just hit a tough point in our marriage. It was just like this rocky place and we couldn't get out of it. And so we had to rebuild our marriage from scratch. And we said, look, we love this house, but it needs a new foundation. So rather than just destroy the house and just go find new houses, right? Let's pick this one up and let's rebuild a new foundation. And so that's where we are. I hope I don't need more than this, but but I think it's like a tree, you know, as each ring shows its age and shows its strength. And so that's where I've grown the most. But were you talking about the context of my business and just life in general? Okay, that's it. That's it. You got to know that you want it. You got to know that you want it and know that it's going to be. Here's the thing about marriage: when you marry somebody, you're only married are marrying that version of themselves. And we're said to become completely different people every 7 years. And so you don't know your future partners. You only know the one that you married on your wedding day. So you're marrying that person, and if you live for 70 years together, you're marrying 10 other people that you have not even met yet. And that's not easy. When that first new person starts to emerge, you're like, that's not who I married, right? And you have to renegotiate and redesign together. Yeah, so that's it. All right, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hi, everybody, satellite campuses. I hope you enjoyed this. We have is it 2 o'clock? Yeah, 2 o'clock. So come 2 o'clock. Make sure everybody you know is there. Text them, bring them. Yeah, handcuff them if you have to. Make sure they're
No, no sessions today.
Yeah.